There we go. So Rusu gonna give the Druid a third chance here. So it's win or bust for the Druid. If he can sneak out a win, he will stay alive in the match. Otherwise, Rusu will be eliminated. And Pride first, looked like he has the Patron Warrior going on down here. Definitely signified by the frothing as well as the Dustbite.
Job's done.
So Rusu with the is able to pick up the coin Wild Growth, so that was really good for him. Otherwise, he kind of had an awkward play. We'll ramp him into 3 mana next turn, so we can drop the Shade, which is pretty much the dream start for Druid. Pride first does pick up Unstable Ghoul if he wants to put that out there now, or if he could just hero power and kind of hold off a little bit longer. Potentially use the Unstable Ghoul to propagate patrons or set up an execute or something of that nature. Wouldn't have had a whole lot of impact on this board, just doing 1 damage to Arusu's face, so he valued the armor here. I imagine he'll do the same thing again, because I doubt Arusu's going to want to reveal the Shade, so the point of putting out a taunt in front of that seems pretty irrelevant. But now Arusu with not much else to play, and unless he wants to swipe the face here, which doesn't seem pretty good. So he's just going to have to hero power and pass, so that's good for Pride first. He wants to take this game pretty slow until he can get his combo. And the Patron coming up is huge on this turn. He's able to set up the Dustbite, attack Arusu in the face. Next turn, he has the Patron Inner Rage swing again for the Whirlwind. But setting up the Dustbite now and swinging face does telegraph pretty heavily that you have patrons in hand. However, it's still up to your opponent to stop it. And since you do have the Inner Rage, if you can make 4 patrons, that's really difficult for Druid to stop. They don't have a whole lot of great AoE aside from swipe, and that's not really good against patrons. So he will have to use a lot of spot removal. This Drake does draw a card, but it's just gonna be Dustbite food for sure coming out here. So pretty easy turn for Pride first. He's got the Patron Inner Rage swing, and Arusu will be able to deal with one of them from the Shade. He'll be able to hero power down one and wrath another, but that seems to be about all he can do here. So I believe even after all this is done, Pride first will still have 1 Patron on the board. So there goes the trade. There goes the wrath and the hero power. Looks like he's wrathing off the 3-2. That seems oh, because he's going to do the swipe here. Okay, okay. I was going off the hero power. That's definitely much better. Did not see... I forgot about the swipe heading back there. So another mistake on my part. Also showing the high quality plays that these guys have, and that's why we're casting them, because of their high skill level and their ability to navigate that 256 player tournament. Was definitely not an accident. So if you think that Hearthstone is just a bunch of RNG, then that's sometimes it does come down to that when players are both highly skilled. But it's not an accident that you see all the a lot of the same players in a lot of the tournaments making it and doing well. The execute here doesn't feel super great, seeing how that was already down to 1 health, but So he wanted to follow it up with a Sludge Belcher and didn't want the trade to be super clean for Arusu. If he didn't execute that, he would have had to go with the Paladin Shredder Unstable Pool combo in order to protect himself from the shade. So now he still has a Execute in hand, not able to really activate the Battle Rage super nicely. He could do it for one if he wants to still, obviously, but not a whole lot of value there. You'll probably see the Shredder come out. There it goes. And now the debate if he wants to play the Ghoul or just hero power. He's already down to 24, but he does have a taunt in the way, so he's not really scared of dying. Haven't seen a Keeper of the Grove yet from Arusu, so that's got to be something he's going to be getting concerned about eventually for that Sludge Belcher. But until that happens, he's not too concerned with dying to the combo due to his health pool and the Sludge Belcher in the way. But he is going to set up the other taunt there, just to be a little bit safer, and maybe set up the Battle Rage for next turn that we were talking about. Or if not, he could set up the Unstable Ghoul to trade into a minion on Arusu's side, proccing the Gromosh, and then use that for 10 damage to the face or to kill another minion. So that seems pretty good. And now with the Ancient of Lore making the trade here, Pride First will be able to make the trade in to the Ancient of Lore, killing that minion. It sets the Emperor down to 4, which will allow the Paladin Shredder to trade into there. So now the debate here is, does he want to use the Grom first? That would make it really difficult for Arusu to deal with it. He would still have a taunt in the way. The Darnassus Aspirant could clear that up, but Arusu would need some sort of removal to deal with the Grom, and it would have only had 1 damage taken out of it, so it'd still be at a pretty nice health total. It would put on a lot of pressure to Arusu and potentially put him into a 2-turn lethal. But he's going to start with the Shredder, so maybe a little bit questionable on the sequencing. They're playing that first before the trade. Oh, the Battle Rage, of course. I take that back completely. I talked about it earlier and then got wrapped up in other thoughts. So definitely that's why he did it for the extra card in the Battle Rage, even though it may have seemed awkward, which it indeed looked to me as well. There's probably some of you guys at home that may have forgotten, if you're like me. But now, for Arusu's side, he's got a lot of tools at his disposal still. You could start with the Azure Drake here and kind of see what you draw into after clearing the Shreep, of course. But he's going to go with the Loatheb instead. So got a different sequence. Loatheb and Paladin Shredder seems really strong. Fortunately for him, the minion that came out of Pride First Shredder only is 2 attacks, so it does not trade in very cleanly with either of those minions, I should say.
I see.
And now we got a he could swing into the Paladin Shredder if he wants to, and then potentially get a trade in with his minion. He's just putting the pressure onto the face. The Whirlwind from the Deathbite next turn will activate the Gromosh, so unless Arusu is able to clear the entire board here, it could be lethal from Pride First side. Well, leaving this one up is not quite lethal, is it? Because that would only be 16 damage from the swing of the Deathbite. The Grom would be 10, and then that would be 2 additional. So Pride First would need to pick up a Inner Rage.
Guide my land.
Time waits for no one.
And now you got we still got a game here now because Pride First is gonna have to either top deck the Inner Rage that we talked about. He could use that to propagate a decent amount of armor and draw some cards. Otherwise, he's got to be pretty scared of some combo pieces coming up. From Arusu's side, which we can see he does have the Savage Roar. So with all those minions on board, it's going to be a lot of damage coming his way. So he could swing face first or kill off the Swordsmith, actually probably a little bit better. The Swordsmith or the Aspirant. And then he can use the Execute to kill the Dr. Boom. Armor Smith and Acolyte to draw some cards. Not in that particular order. He's going to hold off on the Armor Smith for now. And, okay, that's the play he went with. He's going to throw the Armor Smith off at the end here. Wasn't too concerned with that couple armor. So now Arusu's still looking for the Force of Nature to get lethal here. Debating on the Savage Roar to make some trades. Prevent his opponent from getting too much armor and too many cards off the Acolyte. So Savage Roar seems the best way here to force only one attack into each minion. So that's what he's doing here. The sequencing there was perfect. Trading into the Armor Smith first. If you trade into the Acolyte first, your opponent obviously gets one extra armor. So nice sequencing there from Arusu. Putting the Shredder in the middle as well, or as close to the middle as he can. So now Pride First still gotta be a little scared of dying. He does have the slam if he wants to start with that. He could slam the piloted Shredder, so that way it would die to the Whirlwind of the Deathbite if he has to use that this turn. Which seems pretty good. It would put him down to 19. He would not be dead to combo, depending on what comes out of this Shredder. Oh, Nate, now he would. That's not exactly what you want to see if your opponent does have combo. So you may have to use the Grom here to clean that up to prevent that lethal. Let's go ahead and see what the card count is here. So 12 cards in hand for Arusu, 9 for Pride First. So Arusu digging through the deck is getting more and more likely to have the Force of Nature, but Pride First keeping the Grom. Just go ahead and with the Dr. Boom and saying, hey, if you get the Force of Nature, then you're in, you can just have it. Because I believe he's only used one Savage Roar, so could have had that as well. Obviously, we know that Arusu does not have either piece of the combo, but Pride First does not know that. Can't remember if he used both Savage Roars or not. Maybe he did use both Savage Roars, and that's why Pride First did not play around it. Kind of want to think off the top of my head. This is why it's good to have a co-caster. That one of you can remember those sort of things. But nevertheless, we'll play it as it lies here. Picking up another Grim Patron, not super good. Does not have any way to propagate it. He's used both Deathbites, one Inner Rage, I believe, and just one Whirlwind. So there are ways to propagate it in his deck, if I'm not mistaken.
I must choose.
but no way to trade super effectively here. He might just throw out a couple of minions and see how Arusu deals with them. Kind of baiting out the trade into the Frothing Berserker. This Ancient of War going to be really annoying to get through. He's even able to pair it with the Shade of Nax Ramus. Next turn he can back it up with another Ancient of War, and that's going to be a really big wall for Pride First to deal with, especially since he's already used both Executes. And Patron does not generally run Shield Slams. So here's his last stand almost with the second Grim Patron here. Gonna force the attack in there. We'll propagate a couple Grim Patrons, but Arusu has 2 minions on board to trade into those, so not super effective. A second Ancient of War, just gonna be really overwhelming for Pride First to deal with. And I don't really see a way out of this for Pride First. Ooh, now he picks up the Inner Rage. That's really unfortunate. If he'd held off one turn potentially, he might have been able to get a slightly bigger combo. So instead he's going to have to use this on the Grom. Clear up one of those Ancient of Wars. Gets a couple armor in the process. The Grom dies to the Shade though, so that's the unfortunate part here. Or the Big Game Hunter is even cleaner, obviously. I just meant from it, as far as Pride First knew, it was going to die to the Shade. Now that his board is clear, he's got no cards in hand. Pride First is just going to have to see if he can go to game 4. See if his warrior, his Grim Patron warrior, can squeak out a win here in the next couple of games. So Arusu finally getting a win with that Druid. I bet he's pretty relieved on that. He's going to have to switch to either his Warlock or